This is shit that goes on. But it's just a little fruit pie. It's a fruit pie.
To break me down, to build me up again. They like, Hov, we need you back so we could kill your ass again. You know, it's like this thing that's...
In hip-hop, rivalries have always been the heartbeat of the culture, pumping out endless debates, theories, and rumor mills as every bar, every movement, and every post gets dissected by millions looking for the next explosion. These clashes don't just entertain. They literally rewrite the industry's storyline. And now that spotlight has locked onto two powerhouses, Jay-Z and 50 Cent, as the tension between them starts bubbling back up. What began as subtle jabs and quiet signals has slowly transformed into something way more captivating, pulling in fans, critics, and industry voices across the board. The whispers turned into chatter, the chatter turned into momentum, and now the entire hip-hop world is glued to the screen, waiting to see how this brewing storm between two legends plays out, and what kind of impact it might have on the culture next. Although some folks like to brush off 50 Cent's comments as his usual sharp-edged trolling,
saying that she knew someone that went through Jimmy Hinchman proffer agreement for a drug case. And the proffer agreement revealed that Jimmy Hinchman, he could have walked away if he would have given up Diddy. What she mean by that?
Well, what happened was that they had 9 different sessions with Jimmy Hinchman.
There's no denying that something deeper has been simmering underneath the surface, a rivalry way heavier than casual jokes. For years, 50 has circled back to his issues with Jay-Z, making it clear their history isn't built on friendly banter or harmless back and forth. He's even brought up a backstage moment at the American Music Awards where Jay allegedly dropped a slick, dismissive line that stuck with him ever since. And even with Jay-Z's massive influence, unmatched success, and practically bulletproof position in hip-hop, 50's precision-aimed shots always managed to cut through the noise, sparking intense debates among fans and insiders.
Regarding this proffer agreement. So that means the feds went in there 9 different times to talk to him. And in those sessions, they asked him, what do you know about?
Now people are wondering if his constant jabs come from old frustrations, pure competition, or simply 50's undefeated ability to keep himself and the surrounding chaos front and center in the culture. I just want to say, I know a lot of people love hearing these stories now, because this is the kind of stuff that went down back in the day before anybody even imagined YouTube or social media would exist. If they knew cameras would be everywhere one day, half of this probably never would have played out the way it did. But things happened, and these are just the stories from back then, and I want to use this moment to clear up what really went on. It all started in Atlanta, and this whole story kicks off when I was with Puff and he decided to hit an exotic bookstore, doing his little shopping run. This was my first time ever being in a spot like that with him, so I gave him his space while he moved around the store grabbing things off shelves and filling up a brown paper bag they handed him at the door. When they gave him that brown bag, he started scooping up items.
Sean Puffy Combs or Sean Diddy Combs. I don't think it was Puffy at that time. It wasn't Diddy at the time. But what do you know about Sean John Puffy Combs having sex with underage boy? And you got to realize, and people never think about this, that Jimmy and his brother, I think they had the same charges. But his brother walked away from that, and Jimmy gets life without the possibility of parole, I think.
Dropping them in one by one, moving through the aisle like he already knew what he wanted. And I'm thinking, damn, he really gonna have to put all that on the counter and show the world what he's getting. So I'm watching where he's picking from, just being observant. At one point, he grabbed a handful of items from the left side shelf, and when I walked over to peek, the label said butt plugs, and I was like, hold up. I started clowning him, because people don't understand. This wasn't just a security guard relationship. We were cool. We were in the same circle. So yeah, I teased him, because I could. I said, yo, what you grabbing these for? And he looked at me like, yo, can I shop by myself? And I said, yeah, do your thing, brother. He kept walking through the store, and I just waited up at the counter. And when he got there, he didn't pull anything out the bag, didn't show the clerk a single item. He just dropped a fat stack of money, A real stack, not number 20s or 50s. Just boom. Pay for everything without question. Puff wasn't the type to carry small bills anyway. Once he handed over the money, we walked right out the store like nothing happened. After that, we had to head out of Atlanta and shoot straight to North Carolina for a show, and that's where the rest of the story unfolded. And it was him, that rapper, Sarah, and the other girl. One of the most talked about chapters in Jay-Z's story is his explosive split from Dame Dash, the partner who helped build Rockefeller and define an entire era of hip-hop. Their breakup became a turning point that reshaped the whole label and sparked non-stop debates across the culture. People still argue about what the fallout revealed. Ambition, loyalty, ego, survival, all mix into one moment that changed everything. Jay-Z's rise to global dominance is one of hip-hop's biggest success arcs, but the choices he made, moves some call strategic growth and others call cold-blooded detachment, still fuel conversation today. For some, it's a mindset of a calculated leader adjusting to a brutal industry. For others, it's a harsh reality of fame where relationships crack under the weight of opportunity, legacy, and a bigger vision. We got on a G4 jet and flew straight to North Carolina. Later that afternoon, same day, it was Puff, this rapper, Sarah, and the other girl all hanging out in the room together. I'm at the door, listening to the noise, just making sure everything's good. Then suddenly somebody rings the doorbell of the presidential suite we were in. I open the door and this dude says, "Yo, I'm here for my cousin." I said, "Who your cousin?" And he replies, "Jew." I told him flat out, "Well, he busy right now." And he starts pressing me like, "Busy doing what?" And I said, "He with Puff. They in there. They don't want to be bothered." He stepped forward saying, "Man, I'm going in there."
Which is crazy. For any drug charge. Nobody should spend their life in jail for drug charges. And just drug charges. But I think they try to tie him to some murders or something like that. I don't know that to be for sure. But he shouldn't spend his life in jail for no drug charges. Not at all. So, but they was gonna let him walk. If he'd probably had to for that proffer agreement, they probably let him walk. If he had any information regarding Puff having sex with underage boys, that the feds asked him in 2011. In 2011, brother. So what did the feds know? Because the feds not coming there unless somebody made a report or somebody made some allegations against Puff in 2011 to ask a friend of his, Jimmy Henchman, what do you know about that? But for them to ask him about that, it had to be more than a rumor. Somebody made a complaint somewhere. And the feds got hold to that complaint. Now they're going to investigate that complaint when they get people under the barrel. Like they had Jimmy Henchman. That's why they asked him.
If he did know information, right, why you think he didn't tell?
Then they would ask, how do you know? And then it comes into play, whereas that if you know of anybody that's in danger in the welfare of a child, and you see that, and you don't report it, you're just as guilty as the person who does
I
it.
told him, "Bro, you're not going in there." They said no interruptions. But he didn't care. He tried to bull rush past me, and I had no choice but to grab him and slam him into the piano. The moment that happened, Puff and Jew ran out the room. Puff with a towel on, Jew grabbing his tee, both of them damn near naked. Jew's like, "Yo, what's going on?" And Puff asks, "Gene, what happened?" I said, "He tried to get in that room." I told him no. And Puff just looked at Jew, and Jew said, "Man, You didn't want to come in there. A lot of freaky stuff going on. I'm standing there like, oh, so you admitting it's freaky in there? They went back inside, and dude walked off pissed. Next day at the concert, they tried to circle up on me, but my man Frank stepped up. I told him straight, bro, imagine somebody trying to force their way into a room after Jay told you not to let anyone in. What would you do? Frank said, yeah, you good. You did what you had to do. And that was that. But when you said, you don't want to go up in there, a lot of freaky stuff happening. You really got to ask yourself, what exactly were they doing with those but plugs? Alongside the long-standing tension with 50 Cent, Jay-Z has also dealt with public criticism over certain past partnerships and business moves, choices that some say left shadows on an otherwise legendary career. Even with his undeniable influence, creativity, and cultural weight, these conversations keep resurfacing, sparking debates about how ambition, optics, and personal judgment collide in the industry. To some, these decisions reflect the mindset of a calculated strategist navigating one of the toughest business landscapes in the world. To others, they raise uncomfortable questions about how far an artist should go in pursuit of growth, visibility, or reinvention. Yet Jay-Z supporters push back hard, arguing that his legacy was built on discipline, vision, and the ability to maneuver through a constantly shifting entertainment world where the hardest choices often shape the greatest icons. I saw him right before he passed. 2. Yeah, it's wild. Never worked with him, though. Tupac did Gang-Related, Poetic Justice, Juice, and a few other classics. He even did that one with Jim Belushi. Above the Rim was huge, and Poetic Justice with Janet Jackson was one of his best setups. Bullet, Gang-Related. Those soundtracks were crazy, especially the Gang-Related one if you revisit it. But now, with everything coming out about Diddy, and 50 Cent calling him out while the internet keeps pulling up examples, the whole situation is turning into something way bigger than a simple back and forth. So with all these new allegations, Little Rod, the raids, the stories popping up everywhere, people are asking what's really happening behind the scenes. The idea of Diddy's home getting raided shook the whole industry. And meanwhile, I wake up and suddenly my name's in the mix because of some random headline. My lawyer told me every outlet wanted to talk, but I refused to let a headline define me. Even my girl Claudine, Robert De Niro's daughter-in-law, who used to handle Naomi Campbell's publicity, once ran Diddy's PR during his early image makeover after he beat that indictment. She helped shape that whole white party era. They stayed cool for years, but I didn't meet him until around 2019 or 2020. Claudine and I were invited to his place right when the pandemic was starting. There's this picture online making it look like I had my arm around him in some shady way. But bro, there were like 300 people on deck at P. Diddy's yacht on New Year's Eve. I literally went from one ship with Tyson wishing Happy New Year, to another ship where Drake was, to another where Diddy was playing new music. His videographer handed me the phone like, yo, Cube, check out this new track. I sat down, listened, nodded, and kept it moving. But they used the one angle that made it look suspicious, even though the live photo shows everyone standing right there. People twist things however they want. As for the guy suing him, he's chasing money, straight up. And look, I don't know Diddy's private life. I don't know what the police will uncover or what's true behind all this noise. We weren't close friends, we were just acquaintances. I've only seen him 2 or 3 times in my life. That's why it confused me how my name suddenly got dragged into the mess. I think it because of my old cases from 2018 and 2019, right at the peak of the Me Too era, when the climate was already blazing hot. Those situations were years old, but they resurfaced the second people smelled scandal. It's definitely going to be interesting to see what unfolds with Diddy next. But yeah, I had no idea people thought we were tight. Meanwhile, 50 was with me for my 56th birthday. We linked up in Miami after street bars, just hanging out. Miami's where I move around now, so I run into folks all the time. I've seen Drake dozens of times. He loves Miami. But 50? Man, he's different. He hit my line personally, saying, we got to uplift our black entertainers. Let's work together. That's the kind of energy he came with. So we'll see where it goes from here. You know, I always stay quiet on rap drama because I'm just like everybody else, hooked on the music but not trying to jump in the middle of every storm. But this whole Lamar and Drake situation, man, That thing turned into a full-blown war overnight. Someone literally got shot outside Drake's house today, in a gated community no less, and the news broke like wildfire. A security guard seriously injured, gunman gone before anyone could blink, and now the entire industry is watching every move like it's a live crime series. That one incident alone shows how far these feuds can spill outside the booth when the stakes get too heavy for the internet to hold. But the real spark turning heads right now is how 50 Cent keeps poking at Jay-Z's legacy, refusing to let that polished image sit untouched. Every time he questions Jay's accolades, or brings up old alliances that quietly fell apart, the whole conversation shifts. Some fans call it Classic 50, strategic chaos, trolling with precision, and stirring the pot just to watch hip-hop react. Others swear there's something deeper behind those shots, something rooted in history, ego, and a rivalry that never fully cooled. Whatever it is, those comments keep resurfacing for a reason, raising questions Jay-Z never seems too eager to answer. And what's wild is how this tension blends into the bigger picture, years of competition, subtle jabs, and moments everyone swore were forgotten. Each interview, each lyric, each sly remark adds a new layer, turning a quiet back and forth into a slow-burn storyline nobody can ignore anymore. Fans feel it. Insiders feel it. Even the random podcasts catching stray quotes can't stay out of the loop. What started as noise has evolved into something with real momentum, and people are bracing themselves for whatever twist might come next between two men who shaped modern hip-hop. At the core of it all is ambition colliding with ambition, Jay-Z and 50 Cent. Two empires built on opposite philosophies of power. One is calculated, silent, polished. The other is loud, unfiltered, and fearless about calling out anything he doesn't respect. Together they represent two ends of the same throne, two visions of what dominance looks like in this culture. And when those worlds clash, the shockwaves hit everything around them. The fans, the media, the business, even the new generation watching them both like a blueprint. That's why this rivalry refuses to die. It means something bigger than just music. Yet the paths they walked couldn't look more different. Jay-Z rose through calculated strategy, carefully curated alliances, and quiet, precise moves, while 50 Cent built his legacy on bold action, raw honesty, and an unfiltered energy that keeps him constantly in the center of conversation. That contrast fuels their tension, turning even the smallest gesture or comment into a symbolic battle for influence in a constantly shifting industry. Beneath the surface of every public exchange lies a bigger question. What really defines greatness in hip-hop? Is it pure talent, sharp business instincts, loyal relationships, or the image an artist crafts over decades? For Jay-Z, decades of global dominance have cemented him as an icon, but 50 Cent's ongoing critiques keep those debates alive, forcing the culture to rethink timing, strategy, and how success is measured in an ever-evolving landscape. And then you get moments like this. Someone asks about your life, and you say you'd rather be poor than Diddy rich. Can you break that down, bro? I told a guy recently, I'd take a slow nickel over a fast dollar any day. My slow nickel feeds my family, pays my mortgage, builds my community, and keeps me grounded. Compare that to being Diddy rich, the kind of wealth that once carried the name Puffy, then Puff Daddy, then Diddy, a man who had to reinvent himself after every tragedy. From DC's Brother Love disaster to his own ups and downs, every name change reflecting a new image, a new persona. Being Diddy rich makes you believe you're something you're not, bigger than what you truly are, and sometimes disconnected from the people around you. I'd rather have my peace of mind, my family, my love, my community, than a false sense of greatness that money alone can't buy. Think about it. The clubs, the shootings, the names changing overnight, mirage to the zone, tragedies and headlines marking every move. On the other side, many people see 50's constant focus on Jay-Z as more than just rivalry. It's a reflection of his own frustrations with how influence and legacy are measured in hip-hop. Even with massive success in music, TV, and business, 50 knows Jay-Z often occupies a different tier, one that mainstream media and global recognition continually spotlight. Because of that, some argue that 50's repeated digs are more than provocation. They're a statement, a way to reclaim attention, assert presence, and remind the culture that he left an enormous mark on hip-hop's evolution. And regardless of the reasons behind these clashes, one fact stands out. This ongoing tension between two legends continues to grip fans around the world, turning their story into one of the most compelling, talked-about rivalries in modern rap history.